Months after her first appearance in Genshin Impact's Archon Quest, the highly anticipated Flame main Dehya is finally here. She's a Pyro Claymore user with flashy animations that can be played either as an on-field DPS or an off-field enabler with some defensive utility. This video will inform you of Dehya's build and playstyle as well as her value to your account before you wish. As always, if you enjoyed Dehya for reasons like her voice actor, aesthetic, or personality, these videos are by no means meant to stop you from spending your Primo Gems on her. Instead, they should prepare you for the type of problems that you'll need to solve or work around to find success with her. Dehya's kit revolves around her elemental skill and burst to deal damage, and provide support to the team. Her elemental skill, Molten Inferno, places down a relatively large field and deals coordinated AoE pyro damage to enemies that take damage within the field once every 2.5 seconds, similar to Albedo's elemental skill. This field can be repositioned by recasting Dehya's elemental skill before the field expires, though this does not refresh the duration of the field. It lasts for 12 seconds and has a 20-second cooldown and snapshots Dehya's stats on cast. This ability's pyro application can be limiting in Burgeon because of the long 2.5 second pyro application cooldown, and the rather small AoE of the attacks, which can sometimes fail to reach the dendrocores to trigger Burgeon when against larger enemies. Coordinated attacks generate one particle every time they trigger. Molten Inferno also provides some defensive utility to the team in the form of damage migration and resistance to interruption. Her first Ascension talent gives the active character additional resistance to interruption for the first 9 seconds of her skill, giving the on-field character stagger immunity even from the hardest hitting attacks in the game. While this is a powerful utility, it has its contenders as popular shielding units offer comparable resistance to interruption with less time constraints and can be better fit for most teams. Dehya's red main's blood allows her to absorb a portion of the damage the on-field character takes to herself, taking this damage over a period of time. Her self-damage over time can be reduced with her first Ascension passive. However, it is still possible for her to die from this damage while she is off-field. Usually, this isn't a concern outside of Burning and Burgeon themes thanks to her second Ascension talent, which mitigates her damage absorption by healing her when her health drops below 40%. This effect can trigger once every 20 seconds, and Dehya only heals herself. For this reason, a dedicated healer is often required to heal teammates from the damage that was not absorbed by Dehya, which diminishes her value as a defensive option in most teams. During her elemental burst, Leonine Bite, she casts aside her claymore and enters the Blazing Lioness state, which lasts for 4 seconds with an 18-second cooldown and 70 energy cost. She gains increased resistance to interruption during this state, and her damage is considered elemental burst damage. She can get up to 10 Flame Main's fists if the normal attack button is spammed to speed up her attacks during her burst, after which Dehya performs her incineration drive. Attacks during her elemental burst do not trigger abilities that rely on normal attacks such as Xingqiu's Rain Swords, Yelan's Exquisite Throws, or Beidou's Discharges, which wastes uptime on these powerful abilities if used in Dehya's teams. She has standard internal cooldown on her burst, which allows her to apply pyro 4 times with her fist and once with her incineration drive, which has a separate internal cooldown. Dehya's burst will end if she becomes frozen or jumps during her Blazing Lioness state. While this is not very useful in most situations, it is possible to skip her Flame Main's fists and execute her incineration drive immediately by dash jumping. If a Fiery Sanctum field exists when Dehya used Leonine Bite, the field's duration will be paused and repositioned when her burst ends. This means she does not generate energy with her coordinated attacks for the duration of her burst and only generates energy while she is off-field. This drastically hurts Dehya's energy economy unlike other units with similar burst cost. Due to its short duration, high cost, and her low energy generation, making good use of her elemental burst damage window is important. Moving on to talent priority, if Dehya is used as a damage dealer, level her burst first, followed by her elemental skill. If she is used as a defensive option, her elemental skill is the only talent required to be leveled. Her normal attack talent does not need to be leveled as she does not use her normal attacks during rotations. As Dehya's primary source of damage is her elemental burst, 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate is her best in slot artifact set, while mixed sets of 2-piece Noblesse Oblige, 2-piece of Crimson Witch, 2-piece emblem, and the attack percent sets can be used while farming for 4-piece emblem of Severed Fate. She can also use the 4-piece Tenacity the Millith set in teams where she exclusively uses her E for defensive utility. In Burgeon teams, she can run 4-piece Guild of Dreams, 4-piece Paradise Lost, or a mixed set of 2-piece Elemental Mastery sets. With Dehya's high burst cost and low particle generation comes a high energy recharge requirement. She needs 180% to 220% energy recharge to reliably get her burst back. Therefore, an energy recharge timepiece can be a good option for her. If the energy recharge requirement is reached with substats alone, her best option is an attack percent timepiece, but an HP percent timepiece may be used if players are willing to trade damage for additional survivability. Similar to most other units, she runs a pyro damage bonus goblet and a crit rate circlet, or a crit damage circlet depending on your substats to balance out the crit ratio. While she has partial HP scaling on her elemental skill and burst, it accounts for a very small fraction of her damage output, so it is not recommended to run HP percent artifacts on her. As for artifact substats, look for crit rate and crit damage, energy recharge, attack percent, and HP percent substats when farming artifacts. Elemental Mastery can be a useful substat if she is used in a Melt or Vaporized team. If she is played in a Burgeon team, it is best to run Elemental Mastery in all 3 slots to maximize Burgeon damage. In teams where she's used as a damage dealer, her best in slot option is her signature weapon, Beacon of the Reed Sea, due to its tailor-made passive for Dehya. Other great options include Redhorn Stone Thresher, Ako Maru, Wolf's Gravestone, and Skyward Pride. Her best free-to-play option is a Luxurious Sea Lord or the Katsuragikiri Nagamasa at higher refines. Favonius Greatsword can also be a good weapon for her in most situations, allowing the team to run less energy recharge while offsetting her high energy recharge requirement. Serpent Spine is not that great of an option for her because she loses stacks when she takes damage from her damage migration mechanic. For Burgeon teams, her best option is a new event weapon, Mailed Flower. Makhaira, Aquamarine, and Blood-Tainted Greatsword can also be used in such teams. One of Dehya's most suitable synergies involve a Monopyro team with Xiangling, Kazuha, and Bennett. Xiangling provides high off-field damage while Kazuha and Bennett provide buffs to Xiangling and Dehya. Start with casting Dehya's elemental skill, then Bennett's skill and burst, then Kazuha's skill and burst, after which comes Xiangling's skill and burst, and finally finishing off with Dehya's elemental skill and elemental burst. This team allows Dehya to flaunt her animations and provides enough damage to be a good option for most content. Though replacing Dehya with a unit that deals more personal damage such as Yanfei or Klee will improve the team's overall damage output significantly. She can also be used in a reaction-based team with Mono or a Cryo unit such as Rosaria, along with Kazuha and Bennett. Bennett provides healing and attack buffs. Kazuha provides crowd control, damage buffs, and holds the Viridescent Venerer set to shred enemy resistances. Mono provides one of the strongest debuffs in the game and has a unique synergy with Dehya, as her Hydro application and buffs last about as long as Dehya's burst. And is a good option here because Dehya does not work with other Hydro units like Xingqiu or Yelan. Though this team requires careful execution of rotations and is quite energy hungry, it can squeeze out the biggest damage numbers Dehya can offer. It is necessary to infuse Kazuha's burst with Hydro or avoid using it entirely before Dehya's burst is used since Mono's Hydro application is inadequate otherwise. This team performs better with high investment on Dehya, including high constellations and 5-star weapons, and may struggle to clear content without that due to Dehya's low damage output compared to other units. Dehya can also enable another flavor of Melt Ganyu, but can be expensive for team building by pulling away popular units such as Nahida and Bennett. Her Pyro application becomes sufficient when paired with Nahida's Tri-Karma Purification, which sustains the burning reaction alongside Dehya's coordinated attacks for Ganyu to melt her charge attacks. This version of Melt Ganyu is viable, but notably, it sacrifices some damage, as the resistance to interruption Dehya provides does not last long enough for all of Ganyu's charge attacks, which leaves her vulnerable to staggers. Hutao, Yoimiya, or Wanderer teams can use her as a defensive option, but it is often worse than characters like Zhongli or Toma. This shouldn't distract you, however, from using her if you wish to use her, as she is functional enough to be used in a wide variety of teams. Contrary to popular belief, Dehya does not fare well as a Burgeon trigger due to her slow pyro application, her inadequate defensive utility, and the small AoE of her coordinated attacks. If you do wish to play Dehya against specific types of enemies, we recommend pairing her with a healer such as Kokomi or Yao Yao to make up for her pitfalls. The remaining team slots can be filled with Nahida, Alhaitam, Xingqiu, or Yelan. However, it is strongly recommended to use Thoma over her in Burgeon teams, due to his significantly faster pyro application and ability to hit seeds more reliably. Dehya's first constellation gives her better HP scaling and increases her maximum HP, resulting in a hefty 30% increase in her damage output. This can make HP percent stats as valuable as attack percent, giving her more flexibility when it comes to artifacts. This is a good stopping point for players that want to go for her constellations. Her second constellation increases the uptime of her Fiery Sanctum field when recast, allowing her to trigger 2 more coordinated attacks. The increased duration is helpful in Burgeon teams because it allows for more Burgeons to be triggered by Dehya if her skill is recast. This constellation also gives coordinated attacks a damage buff when the active character takes damage. It isn't worth trying to get hit on purpose to trigger this effect though, as the damage buff is fairly negligible. Her Constellation 4 restores energy and HP during her burst. The energy generation can allow her to build up to 40% less energy recharge, allowing room for more offensive substats. Dehya's Constellation 6 extends the duration of her burst, allowing her to land 5 additional Flame-Maid's Fist and gives her a critical rate boost as well as a stacking critical damage buff, making this her best constellation. However, her damage output at Constellation 6 is subpar compared to other units in the game due to her low base damage output. To make matters worse, her signature weapon, Beacon of the Reed Sea's passive does not last long enough to buff her for the entire duration of her elemental burst at Constellation 6. Should you pull? In short, no. Dehya's performance is unsatisfactory at best and frustrating at worst. We cannot recommend spending your Primo Gems on her banner because she fails to fit into any niche that isn't already fulfilled by other units to a much greater degree. Toma is a much better Burgeon trigger. Yanfei or Xinyan with Constellation 6 Bennett are better options in a mono pyro team because of their greater damage output as well as better energy economy. And Xiangling alongside Zhongli offers better damage and survivability in Ganyu melt teams. While Dehya can clear higher difficulty content, it is mostly on the merit of her teammates rather than anything stellar that she offers. However, her character design, animations, and personality are great, and she is functional on various teams if you decide to go for her anyway. With Dehya joining the roster of characters in the standard banner in version 3.6, the value of pulling her is lower than any other feature character banner we've ever had to date. Nonetheless, this may be the sole opportunity for players to obtain Dehya if they desire. Thank you for watching Kuching Main's Theorycrafting staff's thoughts on Dehya and what we think you should know before you wish for her. If you think we've missed anything or have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below where we will do our best to answer. Also, be sure to check out our Dehya quick guide linked in the description below if you're looking for an easy to reference written resource for the details in this video.